Once again, the loading phase takes us from the stance position to the launching position, and it consists of 5 noticeable movements. And in this video, we're going to talk about the 5th and last movement, which is the cocking of the wrists, and identify the muscles involved with this motion. Cocking of the wrists is an action the hands perform on the bat handle at the very end of the loading phase and into the first part of the launching phase. Its purpose is to break inertia or prevent the bat from coming to a dead stop, so as to facilitate a rapid recoiling effect within the bat head at the end of the player's furthest backswing. Let's start by taking a look at this from across home plate. Up until this point of the swing, the wrists and hands have not produced any significant action on the bat handle and subsequently the bat head, other than holding the bat in a steady and firm position. But the batter's body and hand positions right here in this image is an important reference point because this is where the action of the hands and wrists begin to take effect on the bat handle. Or, in other words, this is where the cocking of the wrists begins. Now, as I just mentioned earlier, the purpose of the cocking of the wrists is to break inertia or prevent the bat from coming to a dead stop, so as to facilitate a rapid recoiling effect within the bat head at the end of the player's furthest backswing. So, let's define our next reference point, and that is the player's furthest backswing. If we advance the video a little further, we can now see that the player's furthest backswing ends right about here. And the furthest backswing is simply a point in the swing where the head of the bat does not travel any further away in the opposite direction of the intended path of the swing. So this position right here, with the head of the bat having traveled as far away as possible from the direction of the swing, represents the furthest backswing position, or where the cocking of the wrists ends. So to recap here a bit, let's focus on these two bat head positions. Notice the position of the bat head in this figure where the cocking of the wrists begins, and now notice the position of the bat head here where the cocking of the wrists ends. Again, the beginning of the cocking of the wrists, and now the ending of the cocking of the wrists. Or perhaps a better way of saying it, the wrists are now fully cocked in this position. Now that we have seen the two different bat head positions that define the starting and ending points where cocking of the wrists takes place, let's take a closer look at the action that the hands and wrists have on the bat handle that make this happen. Let's focus our attention first on the player's right hand. The main action that the right hand and wrist are performing on the bat handle during this movement is called pronation, which, interestingly enough, occurs through muscles acting in the forearm near the elbow and wrist. And so the correct name for this movement, seen in the right hand and wrist, is called elbow pronation. It is by pronating the right elbow where the right hand and wrist turn so that the palm of the right hand starts to face toward the ground, and this helps to push the bat head to its furthest backswing position. Now, keep in mind that this is a relatively small movement taking place in comparison to what the shoulders and upper arms are going through, and so you may not pick up on it the first time by simply looking at the right hand and wrist here. However, there is just enough of this pronation taking place in the right elbow to cause the right hand and wrist to turn so that the palm of the right hand starts to turn in toward the batter, and this helps to push the bat head to its furthest backswing position. The muscles involved with elbow or forearm pronation are the pronator teres and pronator quadratus. Now let's focus our attention on the player's left hand. The main action that the player's left hand and wrist are performing on the bat handle during the cocking of the wrists is called radial deviation. Radial deviation is a movement that occurs within the wrist where the entire hand moves toward the thumb, or you may think of it as trying to get your hand and thumb to move in a direction where the thumb tries to touch the side of your forearm. It is by radially deviating the left hand and wrist that helps to push the bat handle and subsequently the bat head to the player's furthest backswing position. And just like the right hand and wrist, keep in mind that this is a relatively small movement taking place in comparison to what the shoulders and upper arms are going through, and so you may not pick up on it the first time by simply looking at the left hand and wrist. However, there is just enough of this radial deviation taking place to help push the bat head to its furthest backswing position. The muscles involved with radially deviating the left hand and wrist are the extensor carpi radialis longus, extensor carpi radialis brevis, and flexor carpi radialis. Now, the contraction of the elbow pronators in the right forearm and radial deviators in the left wrist that we just seen moves the bat head to the player's furthest backswing position, and what this movement does is temporarily loads or stretches the antagonistic muscles in the right forearm, which are the elbow supinators, and the left wrist, which are the ulnar deviators, just long enough so that the player can time the stretching in these muscles and subsequent recoiling or contracting of them to add extra momentum and power to his swing. This is what is known as the myotatic reflex, which is a muscle contraction in response to it first being rapidly stretched, or in other words, loaded. It is a very powerful reflex within the muscle that can significantly increase the speed and strength in which it contracts. This is because it essentially gives the muscle a running start in the direction of its intended path of contraction. Now, the myotatic reflex is only usable for about a half of a second or less after a muscle has been stretched, and then it dampens out or weakens and is no longer available. So the key to using this reflex within a stretched muscle, such as what's taking place during the cocking of the wrists, is to time it at the precise moment that you need it. Now, these stretch reflexes occur not only in the muscles involved with cocking the wrists, but in every other muscle that was stretched so far during the loading phase. This includes the muscles around both shoulders that were stretched during the backward movement of the shoulders and arms, the lateral spine rotators that were stretched during the backward rotation of the spine, the hip extensors, knee extensors, and ankle plantar flexors that were stretched during the beginning of the timing step, and the external hip rotators that were stretched during the cocking of the hips. So these stretch reflexes play a very significant role in your ability to swing the bat harder and faster. Simply put, you couldn't swing the bat very hard or fast without them. And since they are only available within the muscle for about a half of a second, the timing of their creation and use is not only essential to just making contact with the ball, but doing so with power. Now, in the next video, we are going to discuss something called the timing mechanism and see how these stretch reflexes are involved. Thanks for watching the video, and if you would like to, please leave a comment or suggestion regarding this segment of the anatomy of the baseball swing.